But see, here's the thing, is God as your business partner just means that you're going to listen better. You're going to be more truthful. You're going to be more loving. You're going to be more in service. Yes, and we can keep going. Blessed, descriptive phrases that are beautiful phrases. Now, what do you think, in terms of, do employees want to work for somebody like that? Do customers want to come to a business like that? The vendors, who are treated terribly often, want to work with companies like that.
Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Steve Farrell with us. Steve attained the pinnacle of success as a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, founding 2 high-tech firms. But he left all that behind when he, along with Neale Donald Walsch, co-founded Humanity's Team, a nonprofit focused on helping people around the world to awaken to their deeper selves and to the interconnectedness of everything. He's also the contributing author to the Gold Nautilus award-winning book, Our Moment of Choice. Steve's book, A New Universal Dream, came out last year and details his journey from young entrepreneur to a life of service. Welcome to the show.
Stephan, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to being with you.
It's great to have you. And, we met about 6 months ago or 5 months ago, something like that, at a Maverick event. So Yannick Silver, founder of Maverick, who was also a past guest on this show, had you come to the event. And yeah, I really resonated with what you had to say. And I invited you on the show, and here we are.
Yeah, nice to be back together. And as we were sharing before coming on the program, there were some real key moments there where we met out in North Carolina at the Maverick 1000 event. And we're definitely on a wavelength, that's for sure.
Yeah, you were saying that you normally come on these shows, podcasts, and radio programs and so forth without knowing anything about the host and just starting out cold. You got to know me from the event beforehand.
Absolutely. We both have tech backgrounds and deeply spiritual. And a lot of times those things don't go together. Through programs like this and other programs that like we're doing in Humanity's Team, they're more and more tech people and people of wealth and et cetera, that are saying, wow, there's really maybe something to this conscious living thing. And of course, that's the whole point, which is why we're here to engage others.
Yeah, for sure. So you co-founded Humanity's Team. So this is a 501c3 nonprofit. You've co-founded it with Neale Donald Walsch. And I think very highly of Neale and his work. I loved the children's book he wrote, Little Soul in the Sun. I read that to my kid. And he's the author of Conversations with God. He's just an amazing human, amazing soul. And I'm sure there's a story there about how you met him. Some sort of miraculous synchronicities or something must have happened there to bring that about.
There is a story, yeah. So I was actually, as you mentioned in the introduction, I was in Silicon Valley. I really kind of started these companies in the right place in the right time because, of course, I was in Silicon Valley right there in the center in 1990 when we launched the first company, which was in digital communication. So it was riding this wave of the internet. And we were working with larger companies like The Gap and Esprit, even Apple Computer. We were working with large companies, West Coast based, and we then grew it out to the East Coast as well. So we were absolutely in the right place at the right time. So 2 guys, young, used furniture, very inexpensive executive suite, just rode the wave. And here we were 10 years later, we were more than 175 people, over 75 million in revenue when we sold that organization to NEC, the Japanese conglomerate. And then inside of that company, we birthed a second company called Netige that we grew to 75 million in 2 years. So I really was riding that technology and entrepreneurial wave. But during that time frame, near the end of the 90s, I'd read Conversations with God, book 1 by Neale Donald Walsch, and it was a profound experience for me. It began my whole awakening experience. And near the end of the 90s, Neale in his newsletter reached out and said, hey, is there anybody out there reading my newsletter that is running a good-sized company that has actually put the Conversations with God wisdom to work? Now, understand that in the 90s, Neale was on every CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN. He was on every show. His book was on the New York Times bestseller list 137 weeks. So I didn't think I was anybody special when I responded and said, yeah, as a matter of fact, we are putting all of that wisdom to work. I thought, I'm one of a million people writing back to Neale. I was kind of surprised and shocked that I was one of a few. So Neale invited me to, with my wife, fly up to Oregon where he lives and spend some quality time with him. And that kind of got things started. It was years later that I launched Humanities Team with Neale.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. So it's no coincidence that you're working with him. And by the way, Conversations with God, for our listener who's not familiar with that book series, has sold over 10 million copies, and it's in 37 languages. So this is a very, very, very popular book series.
Yeah, the way I like to think of it is, in today's world with all that's going on, and of course it's quite challenging, why would God not create the opportunity for some big collective global conversation that gets to life's biggest questions? Of who am I? Why am I here? What's the invitation in life? Why would God not want to create that clarity? And so Neale says, and I believe, and is often shared by others, he was chosen. He was a man on the streets at that time, eating even out of trash cans. He was homeless when his now famous Conversations with God started. And I believe the reason that that 9-book series is on so many people's bedstand is you can't punch holes in that wisdom. Neale asks these questions of who am I? Why am I here? How does life work? All of these things. And the wisdom that comes back is startling. Even scientists stand behind the quantum physics that's there. Now, I think that what's unusual is not that I read it and that it was profound, because, like I say, as you mentioned, 10 million people have ordered the books. What's maybe unusual is I didn't actually ever leave that. That wisdom was so profound and powerful for me that I then changed my entire life based on that wisdom. And that's where maybe I've kind of gone in a little different direction than some.
Yeah. And as you said, you were one of the few people who wrote in to demonstrate, applied the principles from the book series in your business. And that kind of alludes to what we were talking about earlier about having technical backgrounds and applying that into the spiritual, applying the spiritual into the tech, and just, it's all one thing, really. I mean, we're just all playing this beautiful video game called life, and it's all divinely orchestrated and guided. And if we just kind of relax into it and allow, instead of kicking up resistance, as Abraham Hicks says, kicking up resistance in our path, the miracles ensue. And it's all miracles. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. That's one of the keys. And this was, so for me, where we're not putting up resistance, which causes cognitive dissonance, incidentally, where you resist, there's that little thing, that tap on the shoulder of, hey, you can do this and it will work for you. And you're just kind of pushing it away. Now, the opposite of that, as you mentioned, is to kind of go with the flow, some people use the term surrender, where, okay, I'm here, divine. If there are purposes for my life and my home, and out in the world, use me. And then once we climb on that raft and we go with the flow, boy, watch and see what happens to your life, with your partner, your kids, work, out in the world. Humanities Team, we're now a big educational nonprofit. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. So that's the thing, is just stop resisting, listen to that still small voice. It's your soul's calling, and where you're given vision, which is the soul's calling, you're always given provision. A lot of times you won't feel it right away, and you feel like you're sort of out on your own, and, oh boy, is this going to work out for me, and things like this. But it does work out. To your viewers and listeners, I would say, oh my gosh, if there were one thing that we're talking about, I just really invite you to hear. It's that still small voice that guided you to your partner, to important things in your life, to really listen to that voice. And when loved ones and the world, have this noise around you, don't do, and these things, just, you have to, they love you, and they're trying to help, but they're not helping. So you've got to tune out that worldly noise, even from loved ones, and follow that still small voice.
Mm-hmm. And when you said the word provision, there's two meanings that came to mind for me. One is proactive vision, kind of preempting the bricks that might fall on you if you ignore it, if you don't pay attention to the signs. And then there's provision, like being provided for, having not just your life, but your livelihood provided for by the Creator. Because, of course, you get both. You get provided for, you get your livelihood from the Creator. And we tend to forget that collectively, I'd say. And that needs to be reawakened and really looked at. Because if we think that we're doing this out of our own merit, then that's our ego, and we actually push away the miracles and the synchronicities and the divine support on that.
Yeah, so true. And just to underscore a few things you're saying here, Stephan, of course, what this wisdom says, and now quantum physics is affirming, is that we are actually part of this one. So we're referencing the divine, God. Scientists will use the term cosmos and universe. And increasingly, scientists and spiritual leaders are saying, well, these words are interchangeable. You and I like using the word the divine more because it's more accurate, really, in terms of, because it brings in everlasting life, unlimited potential. But we chose to be here. We're actually emanations of the one, or sons and daughters, if you want to use these terms, of the divine herself or himself. My God, here on this planet at this time when there are these enormous challenges going on. So we chose to be here during this great shift of the ages that's happening right now. And of course, there's so many people that are very challenged right now. And it's because of this separated self, which is how we all grew up, the Newtonian, Darwinian thing of, we're clearly separate from each other and from viewers and listeners, and we're certainly separate from God, my goodness. And we're separate from the earth and all of these things, just kind of living in this separated self that can feel lonely, it can feel weary, all of these things, even today anxious, sometimes depressed, disempowered.
And by the way, when a business owner or operator feels this way, then he or she might feel justified or somehow okay with treating the environment as an externality. Oh, I can dump my waste into the river and save on some money because I don't have to pay for that. That'll be paid for by future generations. Now, maybe they're not thinking of it in those terms. Maybe they're just trying to turn a blind eye to the impact of their decisions. But this illusion of separation keeps us from acting in everyone's best interest because we don't see that I'm the left hand and this person that I consider an enemy is actually the right hand, and it's all one body. And I'm, what's the expression, cutting off my nose to spite my face sort of situation.
Yeah, exactly right. And when we're doing this, what you described, we're playing the one lifetime game. So this is the Darwinian, Newtonian thing. We all grew up that way. I mean, I certainly grew up that way. I got one lifetime. I'll be 5 feet under the end of this life. But this whole awakening experience is, and by the way, Humanities Team, so we're the largest global nonprofit in transformational education. So I work with many of the top mediums, near-death experience people. I work with those people all the time. And I will tell you that they all share this panoramic life review where we're looking down at our body at the end, and we go through other people's eyes and their senses and feelings as they were around us during our life is what we experience. And then the question is asked, do we want to do something different in the next life? Is there something learned by how people felt around you during this lifetime? And did you and God experience what you wanted to experience here, and what we just reviewed? That's, remember the Stephen Covey thing, begin with the end in mind.
Yeah.
That is the end. Okay. Don't take it from me. We have a lot of free programs, by the way, on the Humanities Team website. Go look at the programs with the mediums, the near-death experience. They're all sharing the same thing. That is the end. So where we're just going from a lifetime to lifetime, spending time in the afterlife and so on. And we don't play the one lifetime game anymore. Like you say, I'm going to just make a little more profit. I'll just go dump this stuff over here. We don't play that. That's a kid's game. We don't do that anymore. We realize I'm here for benefit, right? I'm after what is, I'm going to be deliberate, harmonious, beneficial. I'm a steward, a servant, right? Yeah. And I'm going to, that life review, when it comes, it's going to be nice, because I'm going to be listening. I'm going to be loving. I'm in service, right? And I'll make mistakes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, we're not walking on water. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm doing my best. And that's what we want to do, is just really see the fullness of this picture and where we're bringing our best each day. And that's what brings the joy and creates the delicious life.
You know what I think about when I'm in a challenging situation, or I'm actually on the opposite side, taking the time to be with my son who's 4 and doing something that I feel really good about, really proud of, that I've slowed down. I've created a magic moment in my son's life, is I'll imagine floating from the ceiling, watching this moment playing out in my life review and feeling like, wow, this is something I want to treasure and cherish, or this is something, if I'm in a challenging, triggered sort of place, like, how am I going to feel about myself and my actions, how I treated the other person and how they felt when I'm experiencing it from that larger view in my life review. So you could have one foot in this world and one foot in the upper world at the same time, imagining this playing out outside of time in your life review and playing in the now as who you are and experiencing the human experience. And that is what I think sets apart the Kabbalists, those who study Kabbalah, from the rest of humanity, is that they are consciously choosing and working on living in both worlds simultaneously at every moment.
Yes, and that's the best, what you're describing with your son, and the best, even with your pet, my dog, and you just really these moments of connection, of real love with your family, even your coworkers, where you see their specialness, their gifts, their brilliance and things. It's the best. And as you mentioned too, we talk about things that we grew up with where you are triggered and things. One of the things that informed me, my son in his first year of school was reading something that was bringing in inclusive spirituality, and there were references to Gandhi and things, and where Gandhi committed at a point in his life what he called nonviolence, where he would work on himself so that he wouldn't go into triggered states. He'd remained in a connected state. And that really moved me when I read that. My wife and I adopted 2 kids at birth. One of our oldest, our son, has something called pyroluria, also OCD. So he's quite challenged. And, I took this to heart when I read this, and I thought, I'm going to just endeavor to be this way, to just not go into a triggered state ever again, if it's possible. Instead, just kind of look with compassion, look with understanding, because there's a better way. And I'm not going to say I've never gone there since then, but boy, I've seen the incredible wisdom of where I can talk to people, whether it's a family member or in a work environment, and there's something challenging going on, and where I don't go to triggered, I stay in a connected state, and I'm speaking from the heart and things. It's so much more powerful and effective and fulfilling for me and the other person. So there's a lot here. We call this conscious living in humanities team, and again, scientists are affirming all of this, so you don't have to take it from mystics and any longer. Just go read Popular Mechanics and how global consciousness is, every person is connected to global consciousness. And you can read it everywhere. The Nobel Prize for Physics, October of last year, research around entanglement, where two things on different sides of the universe, there's no physical connection at all, that are influencing each other. So this is now affirmed by science, this stuff. This is not new age at all. And,
right. And even random number generators can be influenced by human thought.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's this guy from Japan, I forget his name, but he'd heap joy and praise on plants, and then the opposite on plants. And our environment is incredibly affected, by the energy that we bring, even to plants, certainly to people, to life around us. So
I know somebody who, for a science experiment, their kids' science fair, they put cooked rice into 2 different jars. And then one they labeled with love or peace or joy or something like that. And the other one they labeled hate or apathy or something. I forget which words, but they found that the one with the negative word on the jar had grown this disgusting black mold and things. And it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. The whole thing was really black inside. And the other jar of rice looked like you could still eat it. Like this is a month later. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is true. What's more, like there's an article just in the last week, Popular Mechanics just published, and it says it's from what they can see, it's eternal. So what we're now emitting out into the noosphere or the collective, it's out there forever. It's huge. And where people are near you in your home or in your work environment, in your community, when you're out and about, there's huge impact. It can be positive or negative. And of course, this whole conscious living thing is, we understand we're energetic beings here. So we're setting that vibration very high. And where it's set very, very high, you actually become a healer or an alchemist.
But on the flip side, if you allow yourself to get triggered, to become envious or even hateful, heaven forbid, then you're actually planting negative seeds and even driving negative energy towards that person that you're thinking about. So there's a concept in Judaism called lashon hara, which translates as evil speech. And when you talk badly about somebody that's truthful and you're gossiping behind their back, you're actually sending negative energy their way. And there's another concept in Judaism and other religions too, but I think it's more just a universal law, and it's called evil eye. So evil speech, evil eye. Evil eye is where you envy or are jealous of some person and their wealth, their relationship, whatever they have that you want. And so then you send more negative energy their way, which could actually make them sick or get them to lose their home or their business or their spouse. And you did that. So you got to be very, very careful with your thought hygiene. Keep it clean. Keep it really, really pristine so that you don't do harm, right? So the Hippocrates oath of do no harm applies to your emotional, mental, and spiritual state. Be pure of heart and mind, and then you can operate from a place of service and not do harm at the same time.
Exactly right. Yeah. So, and the thing is nobody I know, certainly not me, grew up with any of this understanding. See, so in fact, it was more sort of the alpha male pounding their chest, yelling across the room. My father used to, oh my God, he would just yell across the room, and a policeman that was telling him, don't park here. And oh, geez. So, and that was kind of considered macho, this was a good thing or something. So, and many of us grew up this way with this understanding of you walk around and you're macho like this, and this whole Newtonian, Darwinian, separated self, pound your chest, was kind of the way to grow up. And so there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of process, research where you go out and create this new awareness of, oh my God, science is actually affirming these things, Stephan, that you're sharing and that I'm sharing, that this is not New Age at all now. There's a science here that's speaking to all of this. We're energetic beings. We set a vibration through the way that we live in the world. We create our own delicious life or not,
Yeah, but I don't think that the person who's potentially listening is going to be moved by the scientific evidence. I think it's really about I think the divine is about the experience and not so much about just being convinced and having data and evidence, right? So if you have an experience of the creator, of the divine, of being part of the one, let's say it's on an ayahuasca journey, or it's from a breath work exercise where you kind of do the hyperventilating type, I forget what the dragon's breath or whatever it's called, or you just simply, like I did, got touched on the head by a monk, given a blessing, and then everything was in Technicolor, like an LSD trip. And I've never done any drugs, but that was absolutely a trip. I got to experience God in that moment, and changed everything for me. That was in 2012. I went from agnostic to connected, and all the miracles just started overflowing in my life. It was incredible.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. As you mentioned, it's really this whole conscious journey. It starts and ends. This flow. One of the terms I'd put around it is you're just warmed by the light of the divine. By the love of the divine, all day long. Yes, in your daily practice, but from the time you wake up on the pillow, because again, we're a part of the one. I mean, my God, you're an emanation, a son or daughter of. So why would we not be loved to the end of the earth, every hair on our head, right? It's there. But because of the way most of us grew up, we kind of put a raincoat on. We don't let those rays through. That light of the divine, we don't experience it. We don't allow ourselves to feel it. And but if we can, through a little research, little raising of our awareness, move that raincoat over and start receiving that, be warmed by the light of the divine, and become an expression, where this flow state is where we're saying, I want to be an expression of this beautiful energy of you, God. So work through me, in my life. Just work through me. Let me be love's expression, your arms, legs, and lungs for you. Also in business, we've been keeping this on a very personal level, but from Silicon Valley and now in Humanity's team, oh my God, where you want to take this in a business direction and you want to create a conscious business with a conscious culture, that's the things we're talking about. Whoa, watch what the community and your customers are going to want to do with you. There's a tremendous opportunity in business.
Yeah. And speaking of which, one of my previous guests shared with me something so destiny changing that relates to business. I want to resurface here with my listener and share with you, and that is making God your business partner. So Curtis Lee Thomas explained how his previous business partner, they moved on and did other things, but he reconnected with the guy at some point, and his life was going amazing. His business was going amazing. And he asked, Curtis did, "What's your secret?" And the guy answered, "God's my business partner." And that just blew Curtis away. He's like, wow, that feels really important. Like, I need to do this too. Tell me how you did it. And he did. And so it's pretty simple. You just ask God to be your business partner, and then you wait for the yes, because really we're just stewards of his business anyways. We just have our ego get in the way, thinking that this is ours. None of it's ours. Not even our body is ours. We're renting it from the Creator. So if we're just a steward and this is God's business, then the game changes completely. And of course, you still have to do something. You can't just sit on the couch and wait for the checks to show up. But it takes a lot of the pressure off, and it facilitates the miracles. So what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. What I've experienced that relates to this, where God is our business partner, is first, what's interesting is a lot of people will say, oh boy, that sounds scary. I'm not sure where that's going to take me. I have a wife. I have kids. I'm not sure what will happen to me if I make God my business partner. But see, here's the thing, is God as your business partner just means that you're going to listen better. You're going to be more truthful. You're going to be more loving. You're going to be more in service.
More in integrity.
Yes. And we can keep going. Blessed, descriptive phrases that are beautiful phrases. Now, what do you think, in terms of, do employees want to work for somebody like that? Do customers want to come to a business like that? Do vendors, who are treated terribly often, want to work with companies like that? Oh my God, it's yes with exclamation marks.
Well, for the right fit, yes, but there are those who choose to be in the lower vibrations, and those aren't a fit for us anyway. So having a customer who chooses to be in a low vibration, let's say disconnected from God and from their environment and from their family and whatever, and is a cantankerous person, I don't want that person in my business as a customer or vendor or employee. So that actually works out.
Yeah. So see, I grew up as a middle kid. There were 7 siblings. I was the middle one. Middle ones just listen well, right? They don't. The youngest and oldest are the ones pounding the table and sort of hogging the conversation. Yeah, the middle, you listen well. So, and I had a divorced mom that was working full time, raising 7 kids, little home, 1,200 square feet. So I came out of a little place like that. And so how did I then land, where I'm the CEO and chairman of these companies that grow to 75 million quite rapidly and stuff? It was through this. It was this process. The term conscious business wasn't around really there so much in the 90s, but I was listening to that still small voice. I threw away my day planner, actually, as one story in the middle 90s, because I was very transactional before then, where I'd say, okay, today I'm talking to so-and-so, and these are the 10 things I'm going to review, very transactional, all one-way communication as a CEO. And as I was going through my awakening experience, I said, this is really not an integrity to my spirituality at all, where it's one way, check it off the list. And I threw my day planner away. I'm not telling people here to do that, by the way. I'm not sure everybody has the same problem I had, but I threw it away. And I was like, oh my God, I might crash this company. I've got to find another way through each day. And amazingly, we were growing quite nicely before then, but then we really hit the hyperbolic growth, because what my objective in throwing it away was just to be more heart-centered, to listen a little better, and then speak to, really two-way communication and this whole love and integrity and service, all these things. You don't have to even use spiritual terms, but where you're doing these things, people notice. I did have some come to me and say, have you turned into some kind of a monk or, CEO? So, which is good. Fine. Call me that. That'll work. But customers and employees, the ones that we wanted to attract and the kind of business we wanted to run, just absolutely took off. And that was one of the markers where we grew even more rapidly, just simply by me throwing out my time management system.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of feedback. I'm a little nervous to share this, but I'm being nudged from above to do this. So I've heard you say a number of times in this interview, oh my God. And I'm going to share a story about this. I want to hear what your take is on it. I was told probably 2 years ago by angels, guides, my unseen support team, to not say this word or phrase anymore, and that it was disrespectful. So I stopped, and I went full 6 months without uttering that phrase. And then I'm at an event called Podfest, which is a podcasters conference. And this guy who speaks to angels and has a podcast himself and does readings and things like that. Really great guy. His name is Steph, SCPH. So he and I were sitting down, and my wife Ryan was there too, who you met at the Maverick event, and we're chatting about something, and he says that phrase and says it a couple times, and I'm being nudged. Okay, please bring it to his attention that this is not an ideal thing for him to say, that it's disrespectful. Okay. I do it. But in the process of me saying it, I actually used the phrase. Now, I was very careful this time to spell out the last word in the 3-word phrase because I don't want to utter it, just to explain what I'm talking about. Because what happened with Seth was I told him, well, I'm getting nudged to share this with you. And I've only shared this with a few people. So now I'm out publicly on this platform sharing the story. But this is something I just shared. I got nudged only a couple times. So I'm being nudged now with you. And so the phrase, as soon as I said it to Seth, my right ear started ringing. And I know that angels communicate with us in many ways, angel numbers being one, and ringing of the ears is one as well. So I've had them ring my ears before to get my attention, but this was so clear and obvious. Like you couldn't get more obvious. The very second I finished uttering that phrase, when I was explaining myself, I'm saying, don't say it, beep. My right ear starts ringing and it won't go away. Like a minute or two go by and I'm like, oh, I really should apologize. So I apologized in my head to the creator, and boom, it immediately stopped. And this was full on tinnitus style ringing of the ear. I actually had tinnitus back in like 2009 or so for a couple of years, and finally it went away. I got hearing tests and brain scans and all that. None of that helped. Just went away on its own eventually. But so that was quite an experience. And really underlined for me the importance of not saying that phrase, because I do believe that it is not respectful to the creator. And it's like one of the commandments is don't use the Lord's name in vain. Now, this might sound really extreme to the listener, like, what? Get off your high horse, Stephan, or whatever. But I'm being nudged to share it, and then I was going to share it with you offline after the recording. And then they're saying, no, share it on the episode. So here I am. What are your thoughts about that?
I'll meditate on that. It's funny because even with Neale, and others that I will use, it's not an oh my God, it's more of a, GODDAMN, but in a joking context. And I was the one that stepped in and said, I don't think I would ever want to use that term.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, well, no, this was a joking. I said, well, okay.
But you know what about that? I think you were spot on with that and saying, hey, maybe we should rethink that. When you look quite literally at what it means, it is a curse. That particular 2-word phrase, it's a curse, and curses are reverse or the opposite of a blessing. You're sending a negative blessing or a negative prayer. So I think you're spot on with that. And also, I think even in a joking context, there is a vibration to each word, and I'd say each phrase as well. So you are conversing in words, but those are being converted into vibrations, because that's our real core base language, is speaking through vibration. That's how we communicate telepathically, if we can do that. Some of us have the ability to communicate telepathically, and that's how I think the universe works, is through vibration and through communication through vibration. So we got to be really mindful about our word choices and the vibrations that those represent. And even if we say it in a joking manner, that can be mistranslated into something we really don't want to convey vibrationally. And I forget what the research says about this, but generally or kind of anecdotally, I understand that our subconscious does not really understand jokes. So we say something derogatory about ourselves, self-effacing, and our subconscious takes it as truth, but we're being self-deprecating and think we're being funny, but then we're giving our subconscious or unconscious embedded commands. It's not good. Yeah, I gotta be careful.
Yeah. So I think for me, the key thing in here is, it's really all about love. So it's about letting God's love in, and then loving God back. We haven't brought that one in, but boy, that's where the magic, if you let that love in and really receive it, and then you love God back genuinely, you're not pushing yourself. You're just like, oh my God, thank you, for this life. Thank you for these blessings. Thank you for where once that reciprocal thing gets going, and you then say, look, your will is my will, work through me. That's where the miracles of magic really get going. I mean, that we've all experienced them on some level, but where our life becomes that, where we really love God deeply and we feel God's love and we become an expression of God's love. We're each going to do that in a little different way, but in, where it's done purely. Wow. And that is, just to bring this back to today's world, this is the thing, what we share in Humanities Team is there's a remedy right here, right now for all these individual and collective challenges. We got wars in the world and extreme weather and polarity and then people, the loneliness, anxiety, all these things. There's a remedy. This remedy is what we're talking about. Years ago, people would have heard this conversation and say, this is kind of interesting, sounds a little new agey, not sure of the relevance. You know what, right now? This is just me, but there's nothing more relevant, more important, more urgent right now than what we're talking about, because where we embrace these understandings and we live into them, oh my goodness, the delicious life we create and where we become a force for good in the world.
I love that. It's practical.
Yeah. So, and this is really, our nonprofit Humanities Team, spelled with a Y. We're a 501c3 and we're an educational nonprofit. So, we've come back to sort of raising awareness, education, research and things, because we didn't grow up with these understandings. And so we've reached out to all the, Michael Beckwith and Neale Donald Walsch, all the spiritual leaders, the scientists, the embodied practices, where we're breathing and doing yoga and Qigong and these things that are really gorgeous, in terms of how we move our body and breathe in our body with these understandings. We have over 175 now master classes and transformational education programs on a streaming platform to, your Apple iPhone, your Roku, every device, every Google, all of the services, all of the devices. And now we're translating into 75 languages. And then we just dropped the price, $100 just this week. So it's now $299 a year, $29.99 a month, or we give it away. There's a 1-for-1. So a paid subscription generates a free subscription for somebody in the world that they can't afford it. There's outside of the U.S. that's still not very economical. So because our whole dream, our North Star is, oh my God, what we're talking about. Imagine we're in every home. You've got this spiritual understanding and you're living into it. You're taking it into your business. So make God my partner. I mean, wow. Now imagine a world like that. That's what gets us excited.
Yeah. One of the things I look at every day is, it's part of my morning routine, is a sheet that has my vision statement on there, my vision for the world. And that is a world where everyone cleaves to the Creator. Cleave as in attaches themselves and aspires to be connected to the Creator.
Yeah, and where we really heal that separated self thing, that we all grew up with, because that's the source of pain, where we feel separate from each other and the earth and God, and it's a painful place to live. And almost all of us grew up this way. So we've got to, how do we get from there to here, becomes the question. And this is why we've created so many different programs with so many different leaders. Neale Donald Walsch's Conversations with God spoke to me. That's what took me there. But for others, it's Michael Bernard Beckwith, or it's Panache Desai, or it's, one of the many other leaders or scientists, or Ken Wilber in philosophy or something. there are many different paths to this on high. And we're saying, well, you choose, listen to some of these leaders. We have all these free programs everywhere. Listen to some of them and see if somebody speaks to you, that walks you into this way of living that you and I are discussing, Stephan.
Yeah. Amazing. And one thing you said about loving God back, and I want to point out, I think it's really important. That was a big leap forward for me, is having gratitude for not just the obvious blessings, in other words, the revealed blessings, but also the unrevealed blessings, those things that look like challenges or difficulties or curses even, right? So loving God back for the challenges too, and that will elevate the relationship to a whole other level. So I write in I call it my God journal. I write in the gratitude journal to God, and I write to him in those pages every day, asking him for messages, asking him for more guidance and for more humility and more wisdom and certainty and faith and trust and all that. And then I write down all the things I'm grateful for, especially challenges. And then I reflect on that and see, how is this challenge that I'm being grateful for? Am I truly being grateful for it? Or am I just kind of mouthing it? To be truly grateful, I need to accept that there's a bigger picture here. There's a perspective where it actually fits into the bigger plan, and it is absolutely for my highest and best good. And it's hard to see that looking forward. It's a lot easier to see it looking backwards, connecting the dots backwards. Not too difficult compared to looking forwards.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. My journey in life, and I'm 66, so there were many moments, where I was about to take a direction in my life that really was not going to work for me. And there were miracles that happened. I call it my GPS, my God protection system.
I like that.
Miracles that happen is and I pray in gratitude for those things all the time of thank you, God. Oh my goodness, for these things that happened that helped us, sort of like on a highway where you've got the fencing along the highway to make sure that you don't fall off a cliff or something, that steer you right back onto the highway. So love God. It's our endeavor to be an expression of God's highest love and service and things. The miracles that'll happen that will propel you to your highest and grandest good in life do happen. And so it's a natural thing for me to love God. I don't want to go down rabbit holes here, but early in my marriage with my wife, my wife even said to me, with you and God, I don't sometimes know where I fit, because I was talking so much about, my love of God. So I love you dearly. You're my wife. And she's okay. Well, sometimes so I had to kind of work on that.
Yeah.
That's
an important point. Like I need to nurture my relationship with my wife to make her feel like she's number one, because if she feels like she's number two, even if it's to the Creator, that still feels kind of not great for the spouse to feel number two.
Right. Yeah. So now, fortunately, with all these years, and you get practiced at these things. So now, if I showed you my text, love you from my wife and my kids, and even coworkers, we put hearts in our Skype window all day long and things. It's our culture. So you get a little better at these things that with time as you kind of grow into higher possibilities.
Yeah. Well, time and practice, right?
Right,
not just time by itself. Like you have an intention, and then you work that muscle. You build the muscle.
Yeah. And it's the way I describe it now is, before, in my more unconscious days, it was like a roller coaster there were some days of, man, this is a bad day. In other days, this is a good day. A lot of times it was a sugar high, but so bad day, good day, kind of up and down, roller coaster all over the place. Now it's more like I'm on a raft. I'm kind of floating above that. And understand, I'm not saying I don't have challenges. I mentioned I have a son, with a serious condition that we're even, do family therapy to help him live an independent life. There's It's not like I don't have challenges, because I do, but I approach my whole day and my whole life. I'm more like on a raft, kind of floating above that roller coaster, just knowing I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing all the things that I can and want to do. And so I don't have those bad days. I'm in a place of, in fact, my intention from the time I get up in the morning is, man, I'm going to just go out, like this conversation, Stephan, where we can just talk honestly about these things.
Yeah.
There's some value in that, because in today's world, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of challenge. And to the extent that there might be a few tools in the conversation, good. We want to put those on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there a particular miracle or seemingly chance occurrence or awakening event that you want to highlight for our listener that will really make their jaw drop, make them feel some awe for how miraculous this reality, this physical realm, how guided we are?
Yeah, so there are many of them. I'll share one. So it was the big one where back in the 90s when I was going through the awakening experience of, oh my God, I'm a child of the Most High. Holy cow. It does say, of course, in the good book, we're made in the likeness and image, but most of us give about 5 minutes thought to that on a Sunday, if that. So, but, I really was going through an awakening experience largely because of the Conversations with God series that now it's true. I'm actually a son or an emanation of the Most High. And so there was that moment when I lived in a townhouse there in Marin County in Northern California, where I sat with these two truths, the truth I grew up with of I'm Joe and Linda's son, and I'm in this body. If you're talking to Steve Farrell, it's this body. That's who Steve Farrell is. And it'll be alive for some number of years. And then there was this other truth that I'd been doing my homework with of, no, my parents just delivered me to the earth. They were like the airport terminal. But I actually came from the Most High. I'm a part of the Most High. And that means this is one of many, many, many lives, and I have unlimited potential and all of these things. And I said, I just can't kind of have one foot in these two realities. They're just too different. What is true for me? And I said, okay, the second one is true. And that became then the floor upon which I based my life. And my whole life changed dramatically. Some would say, see, part of this leaving Silicon Valley, because of my success in business, I was invited into those business clubs where, like the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, was in my little 60-person chapter. Other people like him, the guy that runs the largest REIT, real estate equity trust in the whole world, who's still a friend, were there. And I said goodbye to all of that. Goodbye, and I'm leaving Silicon Valley, and I'm not doing business anymore, and I'm going to go start a nonprofit, which people, by the way, thought I lost my mind. But that decision is what propelled me to this discussion we're having now, the way I live my life now, the work I'm doing, where now people write in of, oh my God, these programs were transformative for me. My whole life has changed, and they're from all of these different parts of the world. Makes my heart sing. So yeah, that would be an amazing moment in my life.
Yeah, amazing. You said earlier in this conversation a phrase that I want to circle back to, and that is spirit leads me. Maybe we said it, or you said it offline before the conversation, started in the podcast episode, but I wrote that down and I'm like, I want to circle back to that at some point in the episode. So how does spirit or the creator, God, lead you on a daily basis? Do you have conversations with God every day where you hear in your mind what he says, he or she? Does it come as synchronicities or signs? Does it come through, just some sort of physical sensation or as visions or as downloads? Like how do you receive this guidance?
The longer we're on this journey that we're describing, Stephan, you and I, what I've found is the more clear and constant is that guidance through all of the above: pictures, thoughts that drop into your head, experiences, music, prayers that were guided to develop and to become a part of my daily practice. All of these things. Of course, it's the highest thought, right? It's the grandest good. It's the most loving thing. It's always that. I'll share one thing which still blows me away. Almost 2 years ago, Neale and I started an initiative called Changing Humanity's Future, which is about making conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. That's only in 16 years from now. as we were getting ready to launch it, I was going to be using God's name all the time, of that we can become close to God and this and this. And God, God was all over this initiative. And I just, one morning as we were getting ready to launch, I fell to the floor of my shower with the water going on. And I prayed like I've never prayed, if you give me a sign, God, that I am to use your name in this initiative. Because I don't want to, even though this is Neale and it's conversations with God and all of that, I don't want to just go out in the world and be throwing your name around unless I know with positive certainty that I'm supposed to do that. And it was one of the most heartfelt prayers I've ever prayed in my life. Now, do you know what happened? The very next day, and I just let it go after my prayer. Very next day, I'm coming down my stairwell and I'm just looking out. We've got windows that look out over Boulder. And there was this bright white bird that was flying up toward, it looked like the ceiling of the house, which they don't really have white birds here in Boulder. I thought, what in the world is that? And I went outside and I stood on the side yard and I looked up, and right at the apex of the roof, a perfectly white dove had landed. And it was just looking down on me. And I went, oh my God. I went inside, grabbed my wife, and I said, Stephanie, there's a perfectly white dove sitting right on the apex of the roof. He's just sitting there looking at me. He's not flying away. So she took a video of the dove, and it sat there for 30 minutes and would not leave and just looked at me for 30 minutes. And I didn't need another sign after that. It was like, okay, thank you. I've got my sign. I'm going out in the world with this initiative, and I'm going to give it everything I got. So those kinds of things will happen too. That's very unusual. That's only happened once in my whole life, but it's more often what I was talking about earlier, a prayer that I was inspired to develop, looking at nature. I get now, I get signs all the time, because this is really what I've told God, look, with all the pain in the world, if there's anything I can do here with my humanities team friends, creating education, doing programs like this with you, Stephan, bring them on, just take me into these things, use me.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and that further, I think, underlines the importance of talking to God and about God with a respectful name, and not just calling it the quantum field or the universe or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't feel sacred and reverent to just tack on that thing, or whatever you like to call it. You can call it the great spaghetti monster in the sky or whatever if you want. It feels really, I don't know, cringy to me when I hear people say that sort of stuff.
And you just miss the best part, because of course we have Buddhist friends and things. This notion of a personal relationship with God maybe is a little foreign in that, but that's the best part, is that where you feel that love and you love back, and it's reciprocal, and you're like, use me. There are people that are in pain in this world, right? We even have family members, all of us, we do. So if there's some way we can live, express, be in service that can be kind of ease people's load a little bit, oh my goodness, why would we not want to do that? So that personal relationship is the most beautiful thing. Yeah. Why would we want to not have that?
Yeah. One way to look at it is you've got the CEO of the universe, or the multiverse, really. It's not just this universe, but every universe that exists or ever will exist. He's the master of all of it. And he has time for his precious son or daughter. So the billionaire who runs a huge conglomerate takes time to answer his kid's call. And that's the same with God.
Absolutely. Every one of us, we're all dear, loved sons and daughters, every one of us. Yeah. And we're all on an equal plane. There is no playing favorites here, ever, is my understanding.
Yeah, we're all equally important. Very important to recognize that. So don't elevate somebody's status, put them on a pedestal, or denigrate them or see them as lower than you, because we're all just, as you said, sons and daughters of God, or cells of God is another way to think of it. All, sparks of God is another way to think of it. And one point, I know we need to wrap up here, but this was another previous guest on the show, Kim White. He differentiated in that episode the universe and communicating with the universe, or praying to the universe, and communicating or praying to God, and how different they are. The universe is duality. It's good and bad. It's good and evil. It's light and dark. It's left and right, up and down, all that. It's duality. So you're getting both sides of the equation when you're communicating with the universe. But if you communicate with God, he's all good. He's all goodness, and everything that he ever will do for you, ever has done for you, and is doing for you now is for your highest and best good. By definition, he only does the very best for you. You can't see it because in this video game, we're so full immersion into the VR world called reality that we lose sight of who we really are. We lose sight of the fact that we're actually in a movie theater watching our movie, and our movie is called reality, and it feels incredibly real. But if you think about how God is optimizing our play in this game every moment so that we get the very best out of every interaction, every experience, and trust and know that that is true. Faith, it's faith. And thus your relationship with God versus the universe is what is bringing in the miracles, connecting you with the tree of life instead of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's a big difference.
It's huge. Yeah. So I know we have some viewers and listeners because, in my own family, there are people that are more resistors. It's kind of, again, we more grew up sort of with resistance of trying to control and to try and think out and take our own steps without partnership or collaboration. And, if we can just practice, just letting some of that resistance down, letting God in, developing this, just ask the question, say, God, hey, these guys was just listening to Stephan and a guest talk, and, I don't really have this going on. Can you help me develop a relationship like that? Just that simple prayer. And I promise you, God will respond. Well, you might even hear it in a song. I'm not sure how it'll come to you, but God will help guide you into your own relationship, such as what we're describing. And then, especially where we open to it, just as you mentioned, Stephan, it's like there's this warm breeze that's blowing us in this direction of our destiny, of our highest good, of our most evolved self, of our bigger self. And we can trust it. My daughter was applying to colleges last year and really wanted to go into drama. She loves the stage. Most of us don't, she loves the stage. And so she really wanted to go to like NYU, which is kind of hard to get into. And applied to schools all across the country and kind of got into a few that were not really perfect fits for her. NYU was the last one to respond. And there was all this nervousness. And, I was saying, we can really trust that the doors are opening for Sophia, to her highest good. That's really is happening. It's easier sometimes too for the dad than the mom. The mom's right there with their daughter and stuff. So, but sure enough, she gets the letter that she's accepted, and she's in this. They have these different schools for drama there, 12 of them in all, and got into this amazing school for drama. Just loves her cohort, having the most amazing time, and it all just fell into place. I believe that was that warm wind, and that's one small example. I think we all can feel into and think into our own examples of this. If we just build that relationship, trust, endeavor to do our best, and then the wind even can get stronger and more supportive. Because again, one of the things God gives us is free will, right? Where we can even say, well, I want to have resistance and I don't want to ever let God in. And, unfortunately, we do lock ourselves out when we use free will that way. Yeah. And even it can become twisted, and free will can actually work in reverse for us, creating a not very happy life. But that's not what this show is about. It's not what the conversation's about. We're about, hey, let's create the delicious life. And I think we've certainly talked around that to some extent here, Stephan.
For sure. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for all you do in the world and all the light that you reveal. Also for being so transparent, vulnerable, honest with our listener and with me today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Stephan.
Thank you. And thank you, listener. Appreciate you being on this journey with us. We'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.